A 9-year-old black boy screams as he's handcuffed on his front lawn. His mother runs outside barefoot, only to be thrown to the ground in front of her neighbors. The officer's voice is cold. He matched the description. But what description could ever justify arresting a child? By the time the truth comes out, 3 lives will be shattered, and 1 uniform will never be worn again. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. The street was quiet that morning. No sirens, no warnings. Just the rustle of sprinklers watering neat lawns and the bark of a dog 2 houses down. "Darius, come back in. Baby, your pancakes are getting cold," called Rochelle Evans from the kitchen window. The boy didn't answer. He was in the middle of drawing something on the sidewalk with chalk, a spaceship, or maybe a dragon, his little fingers smudged with blue and green dust. He was 9, and today, he was free from school because his teacher had a planning day. Rochelle stepped onto the porch, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She was smiling. For the first time in a long time, she felt like things were going okay. The rent was paid. Her son was safe. And the sky was clear. That was before the police cruiser turned the corner. Officer Trent Malloy didn't hit the siren. Didn't need to. He drove slow, scanning the street like a hunter. Dispatch had given him a report. Young male, dark skin, red shirt, possibly armed. Last seen near Westbrook Drive. That was here. And there, a flash of red. The chalk-stained t-shirt clung to Darius's back as he bent over his drawing. He looked up, saw the cruiser, froze. Trent slammed the brakes. Jumped out. "Hands where I can see them," he barked. Darius blinked. "What?" I said, "Hands up." Rochelle was already sprinting from the porch. "That's my son. That's my son. He's a child." But the officer wasn't listening. He moved fast, grabbed the boy by the shoulders, and spun him around. "You match the description. Hands behind your back." Darius screamed. Not words, just sound. Rochelle reached them just as Trent snapped on one cuff. "Are you crazy? He's 9. She pushed at the officer's arm. He shoved her back. She stumbled onto the grass, knees scraping against the concrete edge of the sidewalk. One neighbor across the street peeked through the blinds. Another stood frozen by their trash can. "Stop resisting," Trent growled. "He's a kid," Rochelle shouted. Her voice cracked. The second cuff clicked shut. Darius was shaking. His nose was running. Tears streaked down his face. "I didn't do nothing," he whispered. The officer pulled out his radio. "Suspect detained. Requesting transport." But a voice cut through the static. "Trent, cancel that. Suspect in custody 3 blocks east." "Repeat, 3 blocks east. Different individual. We've got the real guy." Trent paused. Looked down. Looked again. The small wrists in his hands weren't even fully grown. He'd arrested a 4th grader. And now 5 neighbors were watching. And a camera, someone's phone, was recording. Rochelle stood. Her voice low now. "You better take those cuffs off my son." Trent's hand trembled. But the damage was done. The worst part? This wasn't over. Not even close. The cuffs didn't come off right away. Officer Trent Malloy stood frozen, the radio still in his hand. The dispatcher's correction echoed in his head. "We've got the real guy. Not the boy at his feet. Not the kid he just arrested in front of half the neighborhood." Rochelle's voice cut through the thick silence. "I said, take them off. Now." Trent finally moved. Reached for his key. His fingers, thick and clumsy, struggled to slide it into the lock. The metal clicked. One cuff fell away, then the other. Darius didn't move. He just stood there, eyes wide, lips trembling. "Darius, baby, come here," Rochelle said softly, crouching with open arms. He hesitated, then ran to her. His mother wrapped him up tightly, her hands pressing against his back as if to make sure he was still real. Still hers. "You okay, baby? Did he hurt you?" Darius nodded quickly, though he couldn't speak. His voice was gone. Trent looked at them, expression unreadable. "Ma'am, there was a report." Rochelle stood up sharply. Don't you dare talk to me like I'm stupid." The dispatcher gave a match. "You think this matches that?" she shouted, pointing to her son. "He's 9. 9. A crowd had formed now. 5 neighbors. 6. One of them had started recording from the porch. Another called out, "What's his badge number?" Trent turned, avoiding eye contact. "Ma'am, you're escalating the situation." "The situation?" "The situation was you putting your hands on my son. The situation is that his little heart is racing, his wrists are red, and you still haven't said the one thing you owe him." Trent stared. "Say what?" "I'm sorry." Silence. He didn't say it. Didn't even look at Darius. Instead, he turned back to his cruiser and muttered into his radio. Officer clear. Returning to patrol. He got in. Drove off. No paperwork. No apology. No responsibility. Just like that. Rochelle held her son tighter. A neighbor crossed the street quietly. Miss Evans? I recorded the whole thing. If you need it, just say the word. She looked at him, a young man from 2 houses down. She'd never even learned his name. Just nodded. Send it to me. That night, Rochelle tried to file a complaint online. The form glitched when she reached the section marked injury. She tried again. Froze when it asked for a suspect's name. Suspect? Her son was the one in cuffs. She closed the laptop. Across the hall, Darius lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His chalk drawings were still on the sidewalk. But he wouldn't go near them. He didn't speak all night. And in the morning, his wrists still hurt when he lifted his spoon. And Trent Malloy? He was already on a new shift, across town, with no mention of what happened the day before. But Rochelle had already made a call. Not to the police. To someone she hadn't spoken to in years. And when that voice answered, calm and deep, she said just 3 words. It happened again. Monday morning, Rochelle Evans walked into Jackson Elementary with her son's hand in hers. The school nurse stared as they entered. Rochelle? What happened? She didn't answer. Just lifted Darius's arm, turning the small wrist toward the light. 2 red marks. The nurse gasped. Who did this? Rochelle looked her dead in the eye. A cop. Silence. Not disbelief, just hesitation. The kind that meant, don't bring this here. Don't make it messy. I'll write it up, the nurse finally whispered. But you may want to keep it off the record. It'll only stress him more. Rochelle didn't respond. She leaned down and kissed her son's forehead. You be strong, okay? I'll see you after. But Darius didn't move. He didn't look at her. Didn't nod. He just walked into his classroom like a ghost. That afternoon, Rochelle sat in the lobby of the 5th Precinct, eyes locked on the clock. She had requested to speak with someone about Officer Trent Malloy. The woman behind the glass had smiled politely, typed something, and then disappeared. That was 42 minutes ago. Rochelle checked her phone. Still no update. Finally, the door buzzed. A tall white officer stepped out. Uniform neat. Smile forced. Mrs. Evans? I'm Sergeant Nichols. Come with me. She followed him down a hall. He motioned her into a small room with 2 chairs and a metal table. So, you had a concern about one of our officers? Not a concern. A complaint. Officer Malloy handcuffed my son on our lawn. He's 9 years old. Nichols blinked. I see. And was there a call for service in your area? Rochelle's voice didn't rise, but her stare sharpened. Dispatch gave the wrong address. They corrected it while Malloy still had his hands on my boy. Nichols scribbled something on a notepad he didn't even look at. Was your son harmed? He didn't bleed, if that's what you mean. But he hasn't spoken since. He hasn't eaten. You call that unharmed? The sergeant sighed. Look, I understand you're upset. But sometimes officers have to make fast decisions based on vague intel. Do they cuff white kids based on vague intel? Silence. Just for a second. But Rochelle saw it. That flicker of discomfort. Then it was gone. I'll file the report, ma'am. You'll get an update in 30 days. She laughed once, sharp. You know I won't. He didn't argue. Didn't defend. Just stood up. This meeting is over, Mrs. Evans. That evening, Darius was silent again. He wouldn't touch his dinner. Wouldn't speak to the school counselor who called. But he did one thing. He picked up the chalk from the lawn, walked quietly to the driveway, and began to draw. Not a dragon this time. Not a spaceship. A badge. 2 tight cuffs. And a small brown hand inside them. Rochelle watched from the kitchen window. She didn't cry. She just reached for her phone and sent a text to that same number from yesterday. They won't fix it. I want to move forward. 3 dots appeared. Then the reply. Understood. I'll be in town tomorrow. Don't tell anyone. She stared at the message. Then deleted it. Because the fight was coming. And this time, no one would protect her. Not even the law. The next morning, a black SUV parked 1 block from Rochelle's house. Windows tinted. Engine quiet. No lights, no logos. At 7:42 a.m., a man stepped out. Dark suit. Plain tie. No briefcase. He didn't knock. He waited. Rochelle opened the door before he reached the steps. You came. You asked. They didn't hug. Didn't smile. Come in, she said. His name was Langston. No last name. Not today. Rochelle knew him from another life, one she had buried deep after leaving law school in Atlanta. Langston had stayed in that world. Rochelle had walked away. Until now. I've already looked him up, he said, settling into the chair beside her kitchen window. Trent Malloy. 2 prior complaints. Both dismissed. Both involved minors. One ended in a sealed settlement. Rochelle's jaw clenched. I knew it. There's more. His supervisor, Sergeant Nichols, pulled strings for him 2 years ago after a stop turned violent. The file was closed within 72 hours. Of course it was, Rochelle muttered. Langston slid a thin folder across the table. You need to understand what you're walking into. This isn't about one cop. This precinct buries their mistakes deep. You go public, they'll come for you. Quietly. Professionally. They'll use your record, your parenting, your tone, your volume. Rochelle opened the folder. Blacked out lines. Incident codes. Faded signatures. I'm not afraid of them. Langston studied her. Then you're not ready. That made her pause. She looked up. What's that supposed to mean? Fear keeps you careful. Pride gets people hurt. A beat of silence. Then Rochelle asked the question she'd been holding back. Can I win? Langston didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out a document. This is the full misconduct file. Redacted, but enough to trigger an internal review if leaked. Leaked? Accidentally. Through the right inbox. Rochelle shook her head. I'm not leaking anything. I want justice. The legal way. Langston raised an eyebrow. Then I hope you brought more than hope. Because they didn't just handcuff your son. They tested how much silence they could buy. He stood up. When you're ready to stop playing by their rules, call me. He started toward the door. Langston. He turned. If something happens to me. It won't. But if it does, you make sure they regret it. He nodded once. And left. That night, Rochelle found a typed letter taped to her front door. It had no return address. Inside were 2 sentences. Your son matched the description. Let it go. No signature. Just wait. She looked up at the empty street. Then tore the letter in half. Then in quarters. Then into shreds so small no one could read them again. Darius watched her from the hallway. Mommy? Her voice didn't shake. Go back to bed, baby. But he didn't. He walked up slowly. Wrapped his arms around her waist. He didn't say a word. And she didn't say what was really on her mind. That for the first time, she wasn't sure if she was protecting her son or preparing him for a war no child should ever have to fight. At exactly 3:16 p.m. on Wednesday, Rochelle received a brown envelope. No postage. Just her name, written in black marker, and the words. Look closely. Don't trust anyone. She opened it inside her car, parked 3 blocks away from home. Darius was at school. She had planned to finally rest. Instead, her hands trembled as she pulled out the papers. They weren't copies. They were originals. Case logs. Complaint summaries. One report stood out. Use of force against minor suspect. Suspect was non-compliant. Officer, T. Malloy. The child's age, 10. Race, black. Outcome, no further action taken. Date, 14 months ago. Attached was a photo. A boy with blood on his lip. Rochelle stared. It wasn't just history repeating. It was a pattern. She drove to the Civilian Review Board office downtown. Waited 45 minutes to see his supervisor. The woman finally called her name. White blouse, pearl necklace, polished nails. Ms. Evans, we appreciate your concern. But we can't accept undocumented material of unclear origin. This, undocumented material, came from your own department. And you know it. The woman's voice lowered. Then you know how serious this is. And how dangerous it is for both of us. Rochelle leaned in. Dangerous for who? For the people hiding behind sealed files, or the children they hurt. The woman's eyes flicked to the hallway. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. You should too. Rochelle stood. My son's face is still bruised. And you're telling me to pretend? The woman's voice was almost a whisper now. Ms. Evans, they erase people like you. They don't even need to try hard. Rochelle didn't reply. She just gathered the folder, turned, and walked out. That night, she went through every document at her dining table. Highlighter in one hand. Darius asleep down the hall. She circled patterns. Dates. Cross-reference names. Officers who signed off on each cover-up. She realized something terrifying. It wasn't just Officer Malloy. It was 4 other names. All from the same precinct. All with repeats. And at the top of those approval lines, Sergeant Nichols. The same man who looked her in the eye and told her to be patient. Her stomach twisted. She picked up her phone, started to text Langston, then stopped because something inside her had shifted. She didn't want help anymore. She wanted leverage. At 11:47 p.m., she typed out a new message. "How many more?" Langston responded within a minute. "More than you want to know, less than you can allow." Rochelle stared at that message for a long time. Then, for the first time in 3 days, she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that comes when you've already been broken, and now all that's left is sharp edges. By Thursday morning, Rochelle had made a decision. She walked into the county courthouse not as a mother, not as a victim, but as something she hadn't claimed in years. A trained legal mind. She hadn't practiced since before Darius was born, never passed the bar, but she remembered everything. Case law, procedure, loopholes. Most of all, how to shake systems from the inside. She didn't go through the front entrance. She used the side access, still remembered from when she clerked in room 7A 12 years ago. Security barely looked at her. They never do when you walk like you belong. She reached the clerk's office, asked for 3 specific files by number. Civil complaints. Dismissed. 1 from 2018. 1 from 2019. 1 from this year. Same officer. Same precinct. Same language. No probable cause for escalation. Rochelle scanned the names. Different victims. Same pattern. She copied every document page by page, feeding quarters into the old Xerox machine until her fingers hurt. She didn't blink. Didn't stop. She was building something now. Not a lawsuit. Not yet. Something stronger. Undeniable. That night, Rochelle took a legal pad from the top of her closet. One she hadn't opened in years. The first page still had her old notes from a course called Government Torts and Immunities. She flipped to a clean page. Started writing. Qualified immunity versus pattern of conduct. Supervisory negligence. Internal reviews, same sign-off. Chain of custody for use of force reports. She wasn't just gathering facts. She was drawing bloodlines between cover-ups. Her hand moved faster now. Pen scratching. She wasn't thinking about fear anymore. She was thinking about discovery. And once something enters discovery, it can't be hidden again. At 1:08 a.m., her phone vibrated. "Langston, I see what you pulled from the court system." She replied simply, "I told you. I'm not asking for justice. I'm building it." He answered with a warning. "Careful. They monitor court systems. Your name's on logs now." She stared at the screen. Typed. "Let them watch. I hope they do." Then she turned her phone off. Friday morning, someone from the precinct called her. Blocked number. She let it go to voicemail. A male voice. Calm. Measured. Too calm. "Mrs. Evans, we're following up regarding your interaction with Officer Malloy. There may be an opportunity to resolve this quietly. A conversation. In-house." She played the message 3 times, then deleted it, because they'd just made a mistake. They thought she still wanted a quiet resolution. They didn't realize she'd crossed a line. Not the legal kind. The emotional one. The one where you stop hoping the system will fix itself and start preparing to take it apart, page by page. At 8 a.m. sharp, Rochelle walked into the Office of Records and Archives. This time, she didn't ask questions. She filed one. Public records request. Pattern of force complaints, 5th Precinct. The woman at the desk looked up. "That's very broad." Rochelle nodded calmly. "Narrow it however you need. But I want every complaint involving Officer Trent Malloy and his supervising sergeant. 5 years back." "I'll wait." The woman hesitated. "You're not with a firm?" "Not anymore." Pause. "Are you a lawyer?" Rochelle smiled slightly. "Not yet, but I remember enough to make you nervous." The clerk blinked and typed. "You'll have a response in 7 business days." Rochelle reached into her folder and placed a single sheet on the counter. It was a pre-written, legally formatted request for expedited processing, citing exceptional public interest and immediate threat to minors. The clerk glanced over it, quietly stamped it. 3 days, then. Rochelle didn't stop. Next stop, County Education Office. She asked for the school resource officer assignment logs. She had seen Malloy's name on one of the old copies. When the secretary hesitated, Rochelle pointed to a plaque behind her. "Public information is the property of the people." The logs were handed over within minutes. She flipped through page after page, and there it was. Officer T. Malloy assigned to Jackson Elementary. Temporary detail, spring 2022. Her breath caught. That was Darius's school, and there had never been an announcement. She snapped a photo. Filed it. That night, she made a choice. No press. No posts. No outrage. Just a letter. One copy. Typed. Signed by hand. To Office of the State Inspector General. Pattern of civil rights violations at local precinct. She didn't accuse. She documented. Attached were 5 scanned reports, 2 pages of her own notes, and one still sealed complaint from a family she had found quietly 2 nights earlier. A boy named Elijah, 11 years old. Same precinct. Same description match. The mother hadn't wanted to go public. Rochelle hadn't asked her to. She had just said, "I'm not asking you to fight. I'm just asking you to let me carry part of yours." The woman had nodded, handed over the file. At midnight, Rochelle slid the envelope into a FedEx drop box with signature confirmation required. She didn't celebrate, didn't cry. She just walked home, put on water for tea, and sat by the window in the dark. Because the next phase wasn't about proof. It was about what they do once they realized someone was speaking their language. Legal, clean, sharp. No protest signs. No shouting. No social media fury. Just one mother with a legal pad and a memory that hadn't dulled. And now, a name in their system they couldn't delete so easily. Hers. Saturday, 6:42 p.m. The knock at the door wasn't loud. But it was wrong. Too slow. Too careful. Like someone pretending to be calm. Rochelle peered through the peephole. 2 men. Plain clothes. Identical stances. She didn't open. Ms. Evans, one of them called, voice polite. "We're with the department's Internal Affairs Liaison Office. We just have a few questions." She kept the chain locked. "Show me ID." They held up badges, fast, too fast. The plastic flashed once, then pocketed again. "We understand you filed a complaint against Officer Malloy and Sergeant Nichols. We'd like to clarify some things before escalation." Rochelle didn't blink. "Who sent you?" One of them smiled. "Just doing our job, ma'am. Come back Monday." With a name. And an appointment. The other man's tone shifted. "That would be a mistake." Rochelle closed the door. Locked the deadbolt. Behind the door, silence. Then footsteps. Then nothing. She called Langston. They came to my door. Not uniforms. Suits. No names. Langston's tone was instant steel. "Don't engage again. From now on, any contact goes through written record or third party. You document everything." That was a warning. From who? Not IA. Someone higher up. Someone who doesn't want this going federal. Rochelle exhaled slowly. Good. That means it's working. Sunday morning, Darius found a flyer on their porch. No note. No envelope. Just a printout. "False accusations hurt real officers. Support our police." Below it, a photo of Malloy shaking hands at a school. Jackson Elementary. Rochelle stared at it for a long time. Not because she was afraid. Because they still didn't understand. This wasn't about one officer anymore. This was about her son. She printed 3 more letters that night. Addressed to Office of the State Bar Ethics Committee, County Legal Disciplinary Board, Office of the Attorney General Civil Rights Division. Each letter referenced misconduct, concealment, failure of duty to investigate, and obstruction of complaint processes. Each had a trail of evidence attached. All of it legal. All of it clean. And every page signed. Rochelle Evans, mother of Darius Evans, age 9. That evening, she saw the cruiser again. Same car. Same badge number. Parked across the street. Lights off. No reason to be there. She stared through the blinds, phone in hand. Then she turned off the lights. Sat on the couch. Waited. And whispered to herself. Let them watch. Because she had no weapon. No lawyer. No uniform. But she had something stronger. The truth. Documented. Dated. Sealed. And when they came for her again, next time, they'd have to do it in the light. Monday, 10:07 a.m. The call came from the school. Not from Darius's teacher, but from the district office. "Ms. Evans? We're reaching out because your son has been flagged for a behavioral review." Rochelle froze. Flagged? For what? The woman on the line sounded rehearsed. Several incidents of unresponsiveness, withdrawn conduct, and reluctance to follow direction. "We'd like to schedule an evaluation." Rochelle's voice dropped. "You're saying my son needs a psych review because he's quiet?" "It's not a punishment, Ms. Evans. It's a support measure." "Who initiated it?" Pause. "We received a community concern form. It was anonymous." That's when Rochelle understood. They weren't trying to scare her anymore. They were coming for him. She arrived at the school 20 minutes later. Darius was sitting in the hallway. Alone. Backpack clutched. She knelt in front of him. Baby, did you do anything wrong? He shook his head quickly. Did anyone hurt you? He hesitated, then whispered. The man from Friday, he came to school. Rochelle's heart stopped. What man? The one who said he was checking on me. But he wasn't a teacher. He asked about you. Her throat went dry. She stood up fast, stormed into the front office. I want names. Who allowed an unverified visitor to speak to my son? The secretary panicked. Ma'am, we follow district protocols. Then your protocols are broken. The principal arrived within minutes. Asked her to calm down. She didn't. She pulled out her phone. I have copies of the Jackson Resource Assignment logs. Malloy was on this campus without parental notice. Now someone else shows up, and you call him disturbed? The principal's smile faded. Ms. Evans, perhaps we could sit down now. I'm not sitting down. I'm pulling my son from this school. Effective immediately. She signed the withdrawal form in 30 seconds. By noon, Darius was home. Safe, silent, and angry. That night, Rochelle got another message. A text this time. No name. Just, you're tearing your own life apart. Walk away. She stared at the screen, then did something she hadn't done since law school. She opened her laptop, created a new document, typed the title at the top. Evans versus City of Brookdale, et al., draft complaint for federal civil rights violations. And line by line, she began. On or about date, the minor child of the plaintiff was subjected to excessive and unlawful detainment. Pattern of racial profiling has been documented. The plaintiff contends that the defendants operated under color of law. The harm was not theoretical. It lives in her child's eyes. She stopped, took a breath, typed the final line. Relief demanded, discovery, damages, and a public record that no one can erase. She saved the file. Twice. Printed one copy. Locked it in the fireproof box under her bed. She wasn't afraid anymore. Because the next step wasn't paperwork. It was court. The courthouse was half empty when Rochelle arrived. No cameras. No audience. No ceremony. Just a civil clerk behind bulletproof glass and a form marked Federal Filing Pro Se. She slid the complaint through the slot. You sure you want to do this without a lawyer? The woman asked, glancing at the pages. Rochelle answered without hesitation. I already did. The clerk stamped the top sheet. Date. Time. Official seal. And just like that, it was real. Evans versus City of Brookdale, Officer T. Malloy, Sergeant C. Nichols, et al. Filed. Permanent. Public. Unignorable. She walked out of the courthouse and didn't look back. Her phone buzzed, but she ignored it. Voicemail could wait. Because this wasn't about reaction. It was about record. They could bury a video, ignore a complaint, threaten a mother. But they couldn't unfile federal litigation. They couldn't pretend it never happened. And now every time someone searched his name, or hers, a case number would appear. Attached to a 9-year-old boy. A sidewalk. A pair of cuffs that never should have closed. Back home, Darius was waiting. He didn't ask what happened. She didn't explain. Instead, they sat at the kitchen table. He was drawing again. This time, a house. A tree. And a tiny figure on the porch. Her. No badge in sight. No handcuffs. Just him and her in space. She didn't speak. But she took the picture and pinned it to the fridge. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was true. 2 months passed. Then 3. No official response. No settlement offer. No apology. But then, quietly, Malloy's name disappeared from the precinct's online roster. Nichols was reassigned. Demoted. The city issued a press release calling it internal restructuring. No mention of her. No public credit. That was fine. Because this had never been about credit. It had been about control. Control of the story. The record. The silence. And Rochelle had broken it. By herself. 1 year later, her phone rang again. Blocked number. She answered. Ms. Evans? This is the Civil Rights Intake Office. We're contacting you regarding your original complaint. Are you still seeking to proceed? Rochelle smiled. No. The work is done. Ma'am? She repeated slowly. I already got what I needed. The record. The seal. The truth frozen in time. Because long after people forget what was said, or what was denied, the file will remain. Case number 24, CV, 1987. Evans versus Brookdale. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire action and hope.